Welcome to the Cowgirl Bookworms podcast, a space for those of us who read books and wear boots. So what's new this week at brandybradley.com? What is happening in my life? Well, I've experienced a rite of passage. I got my first mediocre review. And I don't want to say it's a bad review. It was a mediocre review. I hope that now that I've been ushered into this rite of passage, that whatever this review is, it's about as bad as it gets. What's funny is that for weeks now, I have been begging everyone I know to write reviews for me. Please write a review. Please leave a review. Please post something on Goodreads. And it's possible someone heard that and said, girl, you want a review? Well, you got one. But I'm laughing. It was not a scathing review in any way. I mean, if all of my reviews are at this level of criticism, then valid. The reviewer was upset because of some copy editing issues. And these are some issues that I actually caught not too long ago when I was practicing reading a section aloud for an event I was doing. And I found things and I'm like, oh, it's flawed. This thing I made is flawed. And it sucked. It really did. It sucked. It was a horrible feeling, but it is what it is. And that's what the reviewer did. They pointed out some things that I knew that I wasn't proud of and I haven't really been in a position to resolve or to fix, anytime soon. But the good thing is that they said they wanted to keep reading the book. It had flaws. They wanted to keep reading it. So that's good too. Flawed, still worth someone's time. And I'm going to take that as a win. I'm going to rejoice in that. I'm going to say that that was a good experience. I'm going to turn it back around. So what is the story? This week, I'm going to read to you a post called Cowgirl Queens of the Flea Market. I was leading a workshop not too long ago where one of the students asked if they could purchase a copy of my novel. I was thrilled. I signed it and everything. But I had not been given the clearance to sell books at the location where I was workshopping. So we had to transaction this whole thing in the parking lot. With the help of an app on my phone, I found myself selling books out of the back of my truck, just like my mama taught me. Since that day, I have been deep in my outlaw country music mode. Songs about cowgirls making their way and at times messing up. Getting by is not always pretty and conventional. Sometimes it's messy and strange. But I was raised to be a cowgirl even if I wasn't real good at riding. My mom loved to talk about riding horses when she was younger, lamenting about the good old days of heading off to the rodeo every weekend. But by the time I came around, she had turned in her saddle. My dad, my brother, my sister, all my cousins, these were all people who put on wranglers and saddled up horses for the day in their spare time. My dad was a rodeo clown for a while. My brother rode bulls. My sister took a turn with goat roping. And while they were doing that, my mother and I were on the road hitting the flea markets, making that money. We had no horses, but she drove a Bronco and hauled a trailer behind it full of our wares. My mother could back it up on a dime, impressing the gathering of men who always waited for their queen to arrive. She was the queen of the flea market. She knew everyone. She could tell what would sell and what wouldn't. She offered advice. She had a corner spot next to the back door, grabbing the patrons when they'd been there long enough to decide that they would spend money after all, but before they'd made the choice to slip out the back door to take a smoke break. Working a flea market is not like working at a mall, and I've done both. The mall opens at 10 a.m. and closes at 9. It's relatively clean. You use a key and open the gate to a store that has been cleaned and organized by the people who closed it. The clientele is suburban and pedestrian. The flea market doesn't open. It starts. Sellers arrive at sunup and build their stores using tables, tents, tarps, concrete blocks, planks of wood for shelves, and lattice to hang shirts or wreaths. The money is not stored in a cash register, but in a money box hidden out of sight or in a money belt around someone's waist. There's no electricity unless you pay extra or siphon it from a nearby security light with orange industrial extension cords. I gave myself a shock when I tried to disconnect the dew-wet cords before disconnecting it from the main power. And the customers are as diverse as the community we'd invaded. Riverfolk, southern urban, lake dwellers taking a break from their boats, antiquers, beachcombers, or silver sneakers. Sometimes there would be rainouts where we threw everything in the trailer before it could get wet and then dry it all out when we got home. At baseball games, when people who tended the field roll out the tarp to protect the dirt with the precision of Beyonce's dancers, I can always recall our own response to the wet call to action of quarter-size raindrops. We'd leave the flea market at night around 5, sometimes later. Sometimes we'd cover everything with a tarp, and other days we'd need to pack everything up like we had never been there before. We'd sleep at home, hotels, campers. We'd drive in the morning, in the afternoon, in the dead of night. We'd leave at 11 p.m., grab a few Subway subs before they closed, and drive for hours until we could crash at a Super 8 outside of a park or a camp where we were planning to set up in a matter of hours. And once the weekend was over, the money had changed hands, we'd go home. I would shower and take a much-needed break in my room alone. Other times, my dad would have made fried chicken, stew, or chili for us. My mother would sit in her chair and count out the bills, the glorious sound of 20s being assembled into a stack. We brought home the dough, but the, quote, real cowboys always got the glory. Cowboys and cowgirls were praised for how rugged they were, the risk they took, the classic nature of their uniform of tight jeans, boots, and button-up shirts. The shirts protect your arms from rough ropes or leather reins, a barrier between you and the dirt if you're bucked off. Same with the jeans. They needed to fit your form so they don't get snagged on fence or briars. They protect your legs from the saddle or the wear and tear of being in the saddle. And the boots, their heel keeps your foot in place. The hats keep the sun and the dirt from your face. All form and function. And it all looks pretty good put together. My mother and I had no such dress code at the flea market. We had to look approachable. I knew I needed to look nice, but I was resistant to looking cute. I refused to wear anything we sold. Glitter-adorned knit pantsuits, hand-painted shirts, chunky silver pendants, basically anything that a teacher or a bank teller would wear to work. I was a minimalist when it came to my look. Eyeliner and mascara with my hair pulled back from my face. Looking cute was too much of a challenge anyway because we needed to carry heavy things. The temperatures would be variable, and much of the time I was getting dressed in the dark. We kept secret spray deodorant in the console of the Bronco so we couldn't carry the stink of our hard work to our customers, who wandered and browsed looking for a deal. I still struggle with looking cute. The nicest compliment I've received recently was a fellow instructor in my building who said I always looked put together. To me, that was high praise, because I still think I dress like someone is going to ask me to help them unload a trailer real quick. There's a level of authenticity that one has to reach before one is accepted into the cowboy community. Sure, you wear Wranglers, but do you ride? You ride, but do you trail ride? You trail ride, but do you compete? How much land do you have? Who are your people? Are you from other rodeo stock? Me and my siblings were legacies in a sense. Our grandfather rodeoed. Our dad won buckles in high school. Around this time, my grandfather welded some bucking chutes and plowed over a track of dirt to create his own rodeo arena. Local boys rolled in droves to work on their bull riding technique. We were like a farm league for a local rodeo. But I was the sibling that drew a question mark whenever they saw me. I was the spit of my parents, clearly carrying both of their features. But I didn't fit in. The black sheep aren't always troublemakers. Sometimes they're nerds. And while my father and siblings spent the day at the rodeo, while the local boys bucked out of homemade chutes in the backs of bulls hoping to hold on for 8 seconds, and the local girls raced their fast horses around barrels trying to beat their last time, my mother and I entertained hagglers trying to bilk us down to $8 from $10. Our philosophy was some money was better than no money, but we weren't price matching like Walmart. Some people came swaggering in, hoping for that haggle, looking for that fight, looking for those bragging rights of walking away with a deal. And we entertained it. To a point. Because no matter how badass they thought they were, we always had the upper hand. We knew how much it cost and how the comps were and how quickly we could resupply. They would stand there implying how our stubbornness and our resistance was foolish, how no one else would be willing to pay what we were asking, how they could head down the road and get the same thing cheaper somewhere else. And either they relented or we shooed them along only to have them return later with the money. Most of them never had a chance because they didn't know the secret. You always have to be willing to let them walk away. After a long day when my mother and I drove off into the sunset heading for home, we listened to country music station and sang along with every song they played. So many of those songs were about cowboys and the wide open spaces and the women who kept the home fires burning while the men went out to work. No one wrote songs about the cowgirls at the flea market bringing home the spoils of their hard work. For lack of that, we settled for Reba McEntire. Despite all the digital advancements and so-called marketing opportunities, there is nothing quite as real as hand-to-hand transactions. There is nothing so sweet as seeing the happy face as they walk away with their purchases, and there is nothing more outlaw country than riding out and bringing home the dough. If you see me out in my black truck, trust I have a book in the back that I'm happy to sell you in the middle of a Kroger parking lot. Thank you for listening. And what's great about Digital Spaces is I don't have to sell you the book in the back of my truck, but you can head over to my website, brandybradley.com, and grab something from the store. And while I will not be able to see your face and your happiness when you buy it, you can always leave me a comment or send me an email at brandy@brandybradley.com. If you've enjoyed this, know that there's new content on brandybradley.com each week. Also, don't forget, each month I'm delivering new exclusive content every month in the Books and Boots newsletter, available at brandybradley.com/newsletter. If you haven't picked up on it, go to my website. You'll find it all there. Read books, wear boots. XOXO B.